bank on it. It's not good that Tennessee's playing a night game, which was announced this week at Oklahoma. They would much rather that be a day game earlier in the day. I think it even affects the spread by a couple of points. I still like Tennessee to win, but I've gone to road games in those situations in which you can be walking into a buzzsaw. The crowd has a frenzy to it, and there is a little bit of a history with Tennessee and Oklahoma. So I think it's a bad thing. Bank on it.
Commercial Bank is your neighborhood bank. What makes us different from other banks? We understand that every customer has unique opportunities, challenges, and financial concerns. We don't expect you to fit into the same box as the next person or business. Whether it's purchasing a home, saving for your child's future, or planning for your next vacation, we're with you every step of the way to navigate life's big decisions. Commercial Bank. Life made better.
All right, Caleb, what do you think? Night game bad for the Vols?
Let me bolster your point and then unmake it and then tear it down. How about that?
Let's do it.
Just build you up. All right, so a couple points. We know Tennessee has had some issues on the road. They were 1-3 last year. There was the South Carolina debacle 2 years ago. We also know they're worse at night because of how early in the morning they practice. And so the combination night road games are the worst for them, which is why they lose a game like Florida last year. This game is different. This game is different for so many reasons, guys. Let's point out that the Florida game, they had Cooper Mays injured. The South Carolina game, there was the Jeremy Banks fight. So you can kind of say, okay, you can see how those could have happened. There was none of that this time. Assuming everybody stays healthy, they're going to go into Oklahoma, and Oklahoma's going to be the nervous one because they just barely beat Houston 16-12. They're worried about the state of the program under Brent Venables. They don't think, I know this, Dave, there is hope in Oklahoma that Brent Venables can keep this thing going, but they're not sure. They're much closer to me and you than and not believing him than people think. And I always say this with a head coach. I get it. They usually have a great season by their second year, but don't you almost always know for sure after their first year that they're going to work out? Like if they're going to work out, you know for sure after the first year.
Well, not for sure. I mean, Dion won more games than I thought he would. Not to go back to him, I don't want to. In year one, I wasn't for sure. I would disagree with that.
He went 4-8, so you weren't for sure. I'm not saying you're sure of what a coach is going to do, but look, put it this way: Josh Heupel, when he won 7 games, I knew it was going to work out. I knew immediately that he was going to work out after winning 7 games in 2021.
I knew it was going to work out from a lot of people I talked to behind the scenes, his presence, his play calling, and all that. So, I would say this: work out or be a good coach. How about that?
That's fine.
It may not be a good fit there, but usually I feel like after a year, I can determine if a guy has the mental acumen and the leadership abilities to be a good coach. So I'll give you that.
Okay. Yeah. So I guess where I'm at is that it's year 3 with Brent Venables and they still don't know. That's a red flag. By year 3, if you don't know, that's a red flag, and they still don't know it by year.
Yeah, I think they're in a weird position right now, and Tennessee has been that with Dooley, Jones, Pruitt, that year 3, you're hoping that's your hope year. You're either hoping for one of two things: that he turns out to be a winner, or he turns out to be a complete bozo and you're replacing. You just don't want the in-between 8 wins, which I think
you don't want the constant 8-4.
Right, which is what I think they're going to do. I think they're going to win 7 or 8 and just kind of be there for another year. And then next year win 7-ish and be there for another year. So they're in the hope year.
And that's what's creating the mood at Oklahoma right now, which is not a good mood for the fan base to be in. Then you couple that with Josh Heupel going back home. Guys, he won't say it, but Heupel takes some things personally. And if there's anything he takes personally, it is the firing that Oklahoma delivered him. And I guarantee you he's been circling this game. And I guarantee you he circled it when the schedule was made last year. And I'm not so sure he won't pull an Eli Drinkwitz from Tennessee last year, Dave, and just switch up everything he does to throw them off, just to absolutely obliterate them. and he's going to want to run up the score. And also, Heupel has an incentive. Heupel actually takes two things personal. He thinks he was wrongly fired, and he also thinks he should have won the Heisman over Chris Weinke in 2000. And
by the way, we had Jimmy Holmes on, and he's going to join us on Friday. We had to move him from today. He's usually our Wednesday guest. But did you hear the story, or this may have been in between me and Jimmy, so I hope I'm not sharing anything. But yes, he does still remember that, because he asked Jimmy when they were talking about the Heisman Trophy. He said, he asked Jimmy, he goes, "Did you vote for me?"
that is intriguing. That is intriguing. Yeah, Jimmy. I mean, Heupel thinks he should have won it, and I think Heupel takes it.
Jimmy said yes, and I said, "Did you really?" And he goes, "We're not going to discuss that."
I mean, to be fair, Michael Vick should have won the Heisman that year. Chris Weinke nor Josh Heupel should have won it. It should have been Michael Vick.
Well, okay. Nevertheless, Josh Heupel likes to grind axes in his off time.
Yes. He has a Heisman caliber quarterback this year that he wants to turn into a Heisman winner. He wants to get back at Oklahoma for beating him. Oklahoma is concerned about Brent Venables. The fan base is not as excited as they should be. And they are massively banged up on the offensive line, facing a Tennessee team whose we all now believe sole strength is the defensive line. That a lot of people think that's their biggest strength. Everything favors not just a win for Tennessee, but a blowout win for Tennessee. And I think Josh Heupel is going to try to turn Nico into the Heisman front runner against Oklahoma. That's his goal in that game. And that's why I'm not as worried about this if I'm a Tennessee fan as I would have been in previous games. They were holding their nose against Florida last year because it's Florida. And you're like, oh no, please don't mess this one up. And then Cooper Mays is hurt. And so there's just a lot of things that happen. I think they're ready for this game. And
but my bank on it is the night game hurts Tennessee, brought to you by Commercial Bank. So does it hurt, help, or have no effect?
Help. Typically, most of the time it hurts. Most of the time you are right, it hurts. They don't want to play at night. They don't want to play on the road. This time it helps because they know the whole world will be watching and they want to make a point. They're the only top 25 caliber game that week, I think. Michigan, USC, but Michigan shouldn't be a top 25 team. They want to make a point.
If I didn't know this opponent, if this were the first game of the season, I would say it would hurt them. It would hurt Tennessee. But Oklahoma's offensive line is such an injury-riddled wreck against what I think is one of the best defensive line groups in the nation. I'm going to go with no effect. I think that game's going to be won right there. And I'll go ahead and predict it right now. They're going to win it up front. They'll be super fresh because they have to play Kent High School. And Tennessee will dominate up front because of injuries.
I totally agree. And also because they're seasoned SEC linemen going against linemen used to blocking in the Big 12. But that's another
they
story.
might dominate if they were totally healthy. But they've got all kinds of injuries. I think when they play their third center. Ew.
And I want to address two things. Tennessee has won 2 night road games in 3 years. Both of them were at Kentucky. So you can take it with a grain of salt because I know you're going to be like, well, it's Kentucky. Like Tennessee could be 0-12 and they'll still beat Kentucky, and Kentucky could be 12-0. I mean, yes, Tennessee does always beat Kentucky. They do have, I know it was at noon and 11 their time, but they have that 40-17 win at LSU, 13 win at LSU in their back pocket from 2022. So they do have quality road wins, and they have quality road wins at night. The question becomes, this would be their first quality road win at night against a team not named Kentucky. But I think they can do it, and I think they're prepared for it. And I think that put it this way, Dave, if they don't do it, then it is official. Heupel on the road's a red flag.
If they don't play well against Oklahoma, you can always lose against a quality opponent. Things might not go your way. But if they don't play well, yes, I would be concerned. I wouldn't necessarily be concerned if they lost, but I think they beat Oklahoma. But if they didn't play well, I would be surprised. Now, the other factor is, as tough as this football team is, likes to run the football, likes to play good defense, and Josh Heupel hates hearing this, they've got some glitz to them. So these guys might really get excited about playing under the lights. That might be a motivating factor. That's something that I'll ask some former players about, because this offense could shine under the lights. And here's the other thing. Oklahoma's had to show to some extent what they do. And they're limited in what they could do because of injuries, but they've had to show what they can do because they've had a close game. Tennessee hasn't had a close game. I don't know if they're going to go out there in double tights. I doubt it. Or if they're going to go out in 4 wide. I doubt it. Or probably just their usual 10 personnel, which means running back, 3 wide receivers, and a tight end. I think that's what they'll do. But if I'm Oklahoma, what do I prepare for? And Alec Eberle, Tennessee's tight end coach, if you didn't read that story that I wrote, he deserves some love because he got all those guys ready. And he said Jacob Warren, who was on the program yesterday, was a major part of building that chemistry in that room. But if you look at let's think about this for a second. You have a guy from Alabama who could barely get on the field, I think had 3 catches after junior college. You had Holden Stace, which you would think would be good, but more probably a blocking guy. And then you had Ethan Davis, who just turned 20 this summer. That's what he had staring at him. One guy that kind of knew the program but was young and needed to develop physically, and 2 guys that didn't know the program at all, didn't know the offense at all. Alec Eberle deserves a lot of love because Kirk Herbstreit said this during the broadcast. He said, Josh Heupel told me, we're really good at tight end. We're tough to stop. I think it's the evolution of this offense. Eberle said yesterday the reason they didn't do some of that last year is why? It was lack of depth, Caleb. They didn't have 3 guys. And the previous year, they didn't have 3 guys. They had 2 guys, and if one gets nicked up, then you only have 1 guy, and you can't rotate from possession to possession. So it makes total sense, and they've done it before, the double tights look, but it makes total sense why that was the game plan and could be the game plan moving forward, because they've got 3 tight ends they think can play.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And we always know Heupel loves to use tight ends in the red zone. He's always been trying to do that, and he just hasn't had the situation yet. He's finally got it.
And in the middle of the field to start the game.
Yeah, no, that's true. That's a great point. And they should have had another touchdown pass to a tight end. That was called back from a illegal block, not a illegal block, excuse me, an eligible receiver downfield. I know you weren't a fan of the call. I understand that. Look, there's a lot to this. And I want to go back to just how below average Oklahoma is. I mean, also, people are bringing it up on the message board. They lost Jeff Lebby. Y'all know how high I am on him. He's at Mississippi State now. Seth Littrell's our offensive coordinator. I mean, okay, Littrell had 1 top 10 offense ever, and it was 2015 when he was at North Carolina when they were in a really, really bad ACC. But outside of that, Seth Littrell's never really been a special coordinator the way Jeff Lebby was. So we're looking at that and we're thinking, how does Tennessee not dominate their offense? Their offensive line's banged up. They have an offensive coordinator in his first year, not in his first year as a coordinator, but in his first year at Oklahoma as a coordinator. And I mean, and he's also just not anything special. Shouldn't Tennessee? I mean, aren't we speaking ourselves into the idea that shouldn't Tennessee win this game?
The Oklahoma game?
Yes.
Well, yeah. I think they're going to be 10-point favorites.
You think they'll be double-digit favorites? On
the road. And by the way, I've been closer than you because you had North Carolina State as a 16-point dog before the number came out, if I may remind you.
I did, but
I said it would be more along the lines of 8 or 9. And where did it end up?
It ended up at 10. It ended up at 10. That's true.
Thank you. All right. So
Dave has context though with the program that I don't have, so this isn't even fair. You told me last year. I'll never forget when you told me, you were like, you told me before Vegas did what the line for the South Carolina game would be. You just were like, you had enough inside sources. You're like, they're going to beat the brakes off South Carolina.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure about that.